I bid you all good morning, good evening, and good night wherever watching this transmission. It is I'm Mike Martins. Thanks for joining me and being part of the transmission. Guys, this is a kind of important one I kind of want to throw out there. And before I jumped in with 2 feet, I wanted to make sure I found something that could really give me a good kick in the pants to make me want to discuss this. So here it is. I saw this article coming out of ABC News, Australians broadcasting crap, and the article is right here. And it's concerning. Is China really communist? How likely is a war over Taiwan? Your questions about China and the CPP answered, coming from Australia's point of view. Now, people need to understand that Australia has been heavily sanctioned by China when it comes to coal. China's resorted to get its coal from Mongolia instead. They've been sanctioning the wheat from Australia, and Australia has been selling its wheat to Mexico, has been buying Australian wheat. So, yeah, there's a lot going on right now, and there's a lot that so many people are not focused on the real agendas and what's really happening. And I think there's too much misrepresentation happening with the mainstream media, and how the agenda is being ushered in. We're 4 weeks out and nobody is talking about it, and it's really concerning. So let's go now to this article. So let's open there up. Now, here it is. Your questions about China. And we're going to go into a little bit of history here, guys, tonight. Your questions about China and the Communist Party answered as the CCP celebrates 100 years. Now, is there a war over Taiwan? Now, remember the article I said, a Biden win and now what? First thing I said was bye-bye Taiwan. And number 2, hello to Amerifornia, where all of America becomes basically California, where it's unaffordable, expensive, housing is beyond reach, bidding wars, tons of laundered money, and then fentanyl and opioid sales coming in from Chinese factories into washing up on American shores, and then the profits being reinvested into properties. And that's been happening in Canada for many years. So here it is. Is China really communist? So China's official ideology is socialism with Chinese characteristics, and it's the least 2 words doing a lot of heavy lifting. Officially, the ultimate goal of the CCP is still to realize realize communism, but in order to reach its goal, it needs to tweak a Marxist-Leninist ideology, hence with the Chinese characteristics. Interestingly, one of the threats of the CCP and Marxists who agitate for workers' rights and labor organizers. So that's kind of a smack in the face with human rights and everything that's been violated. Does President Xi Jinping have a successor? So I don't want to go into successor because I really don't care. Because everybody's the same. So here it is. How likely is a war over Taiwan? So Taiwan, yes. China, no. So I've been to Taiwan myself. I think it's twice or thrice. I've been to Taiwan. I've enjoyed it. It is not part of China. They have their own currency. My wife worked in Taiwan for, I don't know, like almost a decade. She speaks Taiwanese, Mandarin, and yeah. Taiwan's government refers to itself as officially as a republic. So no, Taiwan's government refers itself officially as the Republic of China, the ROC. ROC is commonly recognized as the ruling government of mainland China until the establishment of People's Republic of China. The PRC sees itself as a successor to the state of the ROC. It claims sovereignty over the territory previously controlled by the ROC. So what's behind China's rapid growth? China's economy grew spectacularly fast from the 1990s after the reform and opening up. This is because the prior to that, China was a very poor due to the war with Japan, a civil war, and subsequent disastrous economic policies and political turmoil. Once China became more peaceful and stable, the Chinese government started to relax economic restrictions. China's economy grew to catch up with the West. And so let's find out what's going on here. So let's get into this. So I found this here. Jinping warns China won't be bullied. So in his speech, so he's basically saying that the Chinese Communist Party leader warns of foreign forces seeking to oppress China on a collision course with 1.4 billion people. And we're not counting the hundreds of millions of people that are scattered all over the world, right? Basically buying up properties and leaving, or overbidding properties and leaving the locals impoverished, right? So there it is right there. A speech in front of 70,000 in Tiananmen Square in Beijing. So I guess they don't believe in social distancing there. Maybe the COVID didn't really go through China at all. But here it is. So I found an article from 1900. When was this thing? 1992. So I kind of want to open up on this article before we get into some more meat and potatoes. So let me go into here real quick for you guys. There it is. It's from the Los Angeles Times is reporting. Price reform has moved China forward, with free market forces now determining the prices of 90% of retail goods and about 70% of production materials, Zhang said. Foreign investment and trade also pushed the economy forward, he said. Total foreign trade jumped about 19 points to 163 billion. With China enjoying a 7 billion surplus, foreign investment totaled about 16 billion in 1992, a jump of more than 50% over 1991. China's 1992 gross domestic product, which accounts for virtually all of the country's gross national product, is projected by 2.34 trillion yuan. That is, or 408 billion, Zhang said, about 355 per capita. Average annual per capita income in 1992, listen to this, was 314 for urban residents, 17% after inflation, 134 for peasants, up 5%, he said. While these figures clearly reflect strong economic performance, analyzing their meaning in comparative terms is no easy task. Now, here's the problem with this. I kind of wanted to bring this specific part up because of this. Per capita income and it's slave wages basically was driving up the economy way back in the early 90s. So it was slave wages, basically. When you see that and you see the return and you see the exports, you start to realize that, wait, if we did this in the West, we'd have to pay more for our stuff. So let me get to that. Hold on. So I want to get to this right now real quick here for you guys. This, I had to highlight here, United States-China Relations Act of 2000. This is very, very important. The U.S.-China Relations Act of 2000 is an act of the United States Congress that granted China permanent normal trade relations, the NTR, status previously called the most favored nation, when China becomes a full member of the World Trade Organization. So this is WTO. So let's go over here and right here. President Bill Clinton in 2000 pushed Congress to approve the U.S.-China trade agreement and China's accession to the WTO, that's the World Trading Organization, saying that more trade with China would advance America's economic interests. Economically, this agreement is the equivalent of a one-way street. It requires China to open its markets with a fifth of the world's population, potentially the biggest markets in the world, to both our products and services in unprecedented new ways, said Clinton in a speech in 2000. Clinton reiterated his hopes. Now, remember, like, a lot of copyright material was stolen and then remanufactured and cheaper through China and stuff. And when that was done, we started to lose. This is when we started losing our grips. People said it started in the 80s. It really started to take off, because if you go back here, this is when China, really 1992 is when really China started to see some green, when their exports were up and they devalued their currency faster with inflation to make exports more they look better, right? More attractive, right? So, hey, they're devaluing their currency so we could buy it for even cheaper, right? And that was a big issue, too, in the 1992, right? So, so pay attention to what it says here. For the first time, our companies will be able to sell and distribute products in China. But none of the companies stayed. A majority of them moved to China. So a majority of them at this time were going to Mexico. Okay? Like a lot of the major companies were moving to Mexico. I still remember that. China made by workers here in America without being forced to relocate manufacturing in China. So what America wanted to do was, hey, we don't want to relocate our factories in China. We just want to export our goods to you guys without having to open factories in China. And man, did that ever backfire. Sell through the Chinese government or transfer valuable technology for the first time will be able to export products without exporting jobs. And the complete opposite happened. We basically exported the production of things in China, hence Americans losing jobs. So you see how this backfired against the Clinton administration. So, as a new member, China agreed to rapidly lower import tariffs on open its markets, although many trade officials doubted it would stand by those promises. China did cut tariffs after it joined the WTO, but nonetheless continued to steal U.S. intellectual property and forced American companies to transfer technology to access Chinese market, which were in violations of the WTO rules. So what happened was, then we move over to the Obama administration. When President Barack Obama met with Chinese President Hu Jintao in 2011, officials were concerned that China was not acting in a free trade spirit it agreed to when it joined the WTO 10 years earlier. They proclaimed that China was still restricting foreign investing, avoiding national treatment of foreign firms. So what happened was, the Chinese were out and about around earlier than this, going around. They were buying up California in the early 80s, setting up their base. I guess their economic. They were moving into California at this time. They were starting to move into New York at this time. It was becoming like a very well concentrated takeover, a one-sided takeover where Americans weren't allowed or to import into China, and it was becoming a more and more bigger problem. So I kind of want to push your attention to this, and this is the UN's balanced trade deficit of 2014. So there it is, China right there, Germany second, Japan, Mexico, Canada, Saudi Arabia, Ireland, Italy, South Korea, Vietnam, India, and the rest of the world. So there it is right there. So the trade deficit there in billions in goods and services, right? I kind of want to throw that out there. So let's keep going here. Now, a quiet battle is raging in Congress over how the U.S. will respond to China's growing power. You could pull one of those Reaganomics thing where basically what happened was, I don't know if you guys remember, buy a car from your brother and keep him employed. Buy a Detroit American-made car, keep your brother employed. That went off actually pretty well. And that did really well for the auto sector in the early 80s. And the Steel Wheels Detroit, if anyone remembers that saying. It's about basically just starting to... People have to start to be innovative and start creating and making their own. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that right now, but I think we need to keep jobs in, you know what I'm saying? Bipartisan calls for response on China's growing power are driving two major new bills in Senate and House. Both are forceful responses, but they present critical choices as to how extreme to turn the U.S.-China policy would be, right? The problem is, for the longest time, the West has lived under the expansion of Europe for a long time, right? I'm a Portuguese. We immigrated to Canada. We came for a better life. We have a set standard when it comes to, keeping things organized, staying good with our neighbors, going to church, being, just being, everything has been turning again. A lot of people forget, America is an extension of Europe. Mexico is an extension of Europe. Spain, Brazil is an extension of Europe. Portugal, right? And a lot of people are forgetting that when these countries start losing that, and this dark cloud starts coming in, and there's tons of things happening where the Chinese are buying telecom companies in Argentina. They're buying telecom companies in Brazil. Why would the Chinese care about the best interests of cellular companies in Brazil? Why are they building highways in Jamaica? Why are they, you know what I'm saying? Why are they recolonizing Africa? You see what I'm saying? It's not in the best interests of the people, especially coming from a communist regime that basically arrests and detains people from religions, from different backgrounds. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, so I'm not going to get into that, but I wanted to say this because it's very important, right? If it was the Puerto Ricans that were getting the power and stuff, hey, they got great music, pretty girls, good food, they're family oriented, they're not, I would be, whoa, yeah, Puerto Rico, but when it's as children, we grew up to hate communism. I don't hate the Chinese people. My ex, I brought this up many times. My ex is Chinese, and the one before that was Chinese. My wife right now is from the Philippines. It has nothing to do with, it's the communism, the idealisms, the Maoisms, the making people into soulless, with no soul, into degenerate robots that are trained to hate each other, not trust anybody, and create these social credit scores to keep us in check. And you get penalized for who you're friends with. And that's coming here. This is all coming here, right? Now, one thing no one's covering now or talking about is this. India-China tensions are rise as 50,000 troops rush to protect border. This was posted a few hours ago. While the world's attention was elsewhere, China has been expanding and building new bases. Now 50,000 troops have been deployed. So, a bloody brawl erupted in the Himalayan high plateaus a year ago, in which more than 20 Indian and Chinese border troops were killed. Beijing had been pushing the limits of decades-old territorial agreements. Now, you guys remember on Mike and the Night, we talked about this in depth. The Hindu-Sinu conflict, border conflict, I think it was in the 1960s. And what happened was, this late 50s, early 60s, I think it was 62, don't quote me on the year, but what happened was the Chinese made progress. They got into India. They were 20, 30 miles into the Indian territory, and India the next hour called America and said, we need help. We're being taken over by the Chinese. The Chinese immediately withdrew their troops, immediately went back across the border, and immediately blamed India for the problem. That's exactly what happened. And yeah. So that's a major issue, right? So now, two have been engaged in a frosty standoff ever since. No further fighting has so far occurred by the nuclear-armed neighbors, but tensions remain high. So this was a few days ago. Several people died. So I know people who are in these specific regions on the Indian side, and this is actually a lot bigger. There's a lot of pent-up military movements in these areas, and I am very concerned. Obviously, I'm on the side of India because India is a very neutral country. India, is neutral. I wouldn't say their human rights are 100%. I mean, they've been screwing farmers lately, but in all fairness, I'm really siding with the Indians on this. I don't want to. It's gonna get it's. Military analysts say India is now a total of 200,000 troops mobilized to the mountain border status quo, and this is from 4 days ago. So, satellite images have captured the extent of Beijing's massive new efforts to expand and build new bases, establish ammunition dumps, deploy tanks and artillery, and cut new roads to the Himalayan highlands. So, India is on a fast-forward pace to start moving fencing, security fencing, and all kinds. The suspected underground facility is there. So there it is right there, full front, full center, and what is happening there. This is major. We're 4 weeks out, and, tensions are growing a lot faster than I expected, and how communist China drives drugs, violence, and inflated housing prices in Canada. Full comment with Anthony Fury. So there it is right there. It's a story shocking. It's hard to believe. We've been talking about this on Trends in the Housing Market, posted 2 days ago. And the profits of the drugs are basically recycled into housing. So this, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police knew about this and what was happening. Our purity is above 99%. The Chinese labs churning out legal highs for the West. Chinese factories are mass producing novel psychoactive substances that mimic banned substances destined for an eager market in the US and the UK. So this was posted in, let me get a year here, 2015. So this was happening for a long time. It really took off in 2010 during the Vancouver Olympics. And from then on, all the money was recycled into real estate, impoverishing the local people, impoverishing families, and creating our youth dying on the streets. And all these major cities are being taken out, and without a single shot fired by the enemy. At midnight on recent Friday, in a back room in a global farmers laboratory in Shanghai, a Chinese chemist who called himself Terry was eager to close a deal outside the lab. Of bright yellow liquid whirled around the flask. The smell of fumes was so intense it left a bitter chemical aftertaste. So there it is. They're building this up, and they make it. They package it, make it look good. It's gold. It's the best, and it's cheap. And it hits the streets, and money gets recycled, and it just destroys our youth. And there it is, right there. This is a photo from taken in 2014. Under a haze of misinformation, the reality is most people smoke whatever spice comes out of the packet. And I have been working in emergency medicine for almost 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this, said Jackson doctor, when nearly 30 patients arrived within 72 hours after overdosing on spice, photographs Thomas Wells. So there it is right there. And this was in 2015, and there's a lot of incidences going further back. And yeah, purity is above 99%. And a lot of these factories were bought out and restructured by the Chinese Communist Party. We have an article on that we read before. And what does Canada do? We want more Chinese workers and students. While Canada's deporting Portuguese families, Hungarian families, Polish families back to Europe in mass scale, Canada was opening more and more visa offices to get more Chinese into Canada. 500,000 per year, 500,000 Chinese per year to bring in. And don't go to Stats Canada Immigration. This is not listed on there because investors don't count as fleeing immigrants or immigrants coming. This is a completely different observation here. Completely different. Biggest market in the world, and they spend a lot of money. Buy up our real estate. So what happens? So this is important. This is a key article to where we are right now. And what happens is, BC Mine to hire only Chinese temporary workers. This is from 2012. So our biggest mines in Canada are no longer operated and functioned or operated and ran by Canadians. It's basically the ones that are owned by China basically hire their own, but they use our healthcare. They come and use our hospitals if someone gets hurt on site. And Canada would be in a recession without money laundering. Who cares? The world economy would collapse if the city of London stopped money laundering. So these are older articles, but when you start connecting the dots, you start to realize what is happening. And laundering money through real estate is far from new, but the velocity and volume is. So this is what we need to look at here. Traditionally, launderers would buy and hold and sometimes even rent out places out. The lack of scrutiny in the real estate transactions has always made it a prime landing spot. Every city has a few well-known families connected to local mobs that just happen to be in real estate. The impact to home prices are minimal when the volume is low and slow. Treating real estate like a global commodity market makes it a fast, high volume. The real estate industry in Canada encourages foreign capital. In fact, Canadian banks openly help clients with placement. Now, we saw what happened with Westpac in Australia when they tried to stop this placement thing. Westpac, the bank in Australia, they put the law in for a year and a half, and they had 26 million money laundering infractions in like 15 months. Because they kept breaking these money laundering laws. They kept breaking them. So for them to pay these infractions, there must have been hundreds of billions of dollars laundered through Westpac. I'm not sure, but I'm just speculating here if they're going to pay billions of dollars in fines. So there it is. Help clients with placement. Obfuscating deposit trails. So, yeah, hiding deposit trails. The faster you could place, the faster rise. The more they welcome foreign capital, the easier the wash. So there it is. And the equity, again, is used to buy more housing, right? So that's what's been happening. So this is what I'm afraid of, guys, because things happen like this where money laundering whistleblower vanishes without a trace. This, I guess, was swept under the rug. It was by Economy, Law, and Politics, BIV. Never heard of them, but I looked into this and found out a key whistleblower to alleged money laundering in BC casinos has seemingly vanished without a trace. So I kind of wanted to throw this out there because it's kind of important, because we're going through a huge transition when it comes to media, television, movies, and it's been happening since the early 90s, and it's been progressing ever so gracefully. And people are becoming more accepting of the change. People are becoming more in tune and wanting to be part of this whole new agenda that's happening. And they're getting their serums injected in them, and they're being good citizens. It's becoming a major issue, guys. And this dark cloud is coming. It's here. But it's going to be very interesting how things unravel. After that speech, and after that article posted, basically, is China really a communist country? Maybe we should look at, like our Canadian Prime Minister says, it's a socialist or what? Communist party that gets things done? Right? So this is something that's, remember, guys, Canada, United States, Mexico, Central America, even Brazil, South America, they're extensions of Europe. European infrastructure. Everybody worked hard. You know, people worked hard to make America what it was. People worked hard to make Canada, like my dad worked himself to death to make Canada a better place. So while Canada's deporting Portuguese and Hungarians and families and in mass deportations, using them to build the infrastructure and then kicking them out of the country so someone else could take over the infrastructure. It's scary. Scary times we're living in, folks. Anyways, guys, I wanted to throw this out there. Be strong, be good. Happy Friday. It's Friday. It's almost Friday morning here. And I want to wish everybody a happy Friday. And, yeah, let's just be good to one another, and hopefully we could work through this. You know, we got 4 weeks to go, and hopefully we could get something worked out. Or maybe, you know, I keep saying that get in touch with your loved ones. I think it's time that everyone starts to reconcile, I guess, or come to terms with each other and love one another. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Mike Martins here. I have spoken.